Okay, we're going to use Photoshop again to create another business logo. This time we're going to do a little bit more advanced logo, add some different features to it. And this time I'm going to be a pet supply owner. My company is going to be named Horger Pet Supply. So to go ahead and get started, I'm just in Photoshop. I'm going to go up to the File menu and to New. And I'm just going to leave it at 7 inches by 5 inches with a white background. It's always nice to leave it with a little bit more room than what you need, because you can always grab the crop tool and go ahead and crop later on. So let me go ahead and just say OK. And there I have a nice white canvas to start working with. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to come down here and grab my type tool. And you see I have Times New Roman, a nice basic font at 60 point. And I'm just going to go out here and I'm just going to type my last name. So let me just go ahead and type Horger. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, let me just move it over here to the right a little bit. I'm going to stylize that a little bit. And the first thing I'll do is down in my layers palette, you see the T icon that indicates we're on a text layer. Let me just go ahead and double click on that so I highlight my entire name. And I'm going to come up to the tool options bar and I'm going to go over to the character palette. And I'm going to do a couple things. First of all, if I come down to the tracking, the character tracking, you see right now my character tracking is at 0. I'm just going to go ahead and set that to 50. And that's just going to put a little bit more space in between each letter, in between the H and the O and the R, and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to the bottom of the character palette, and I have these different icons down here, and the fourth one over lets me make it all small caps. And I'm going to go ahead and make everything on Horger small caps. And you know what? I kind of want the H to stand out a little bit. So I'm just going to click right in front of the H, and I'm only going to highlight the H. And I'm going to increase the size from 60. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make it 66. And then I'm going to come down here to the bottom and I'm going to make it bold. And so now if I go ahead and click off of it, you see the H will stand out a little bit from the rest of the letters. So now that I have Horger done, I can go on to the next part of my logo. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create a line here, and then down below that line I'll have the words Pet Supplies, and then I'll create another line down below that. So let me go ahead and create the first line to begin with. It's pretty simple. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put everything on a separate layer throughout this entire process so everything is editable. That's probably the best practice. Always put things on separate layers so you can delete them as you wish, you can edit them as you wish, you can change everything. So let me come down here and just click on my new layer icon, and you see I added a new layer, layer 1. And I'm just going to grab my type tool and I'm just going to come out here. And to make an underline is actually pretty simple. I'm just going to use the underscore key. It is just to the right to the number 0 up on your keyboard. I'm just going to go ahead and hit my underscore key there. And now what I can do in the very bottom left hand corner of my keyboard, you'll see the control key. I'll go ahead and hold that down, and you see the little box comes up that goes around my underscore key that lets me resize it. I can just go ahead and grab the handles here and stretch out to the right and resize my underscore key. And let me get it to about the size I want it. Now I can just grab my move tool and move it over here. I need it a little bit longer, so I'll just go ahead and make sure I have that selected. I have to double click on this T icon indicating the text layer to select it. Hold down the control key and just stretch it out a little bit longer, and I think we got it just about there. There we go. So now I have Horger and it's underlined, and let me just go ahead and move it up a little bit closer to my name. And there we go. Now I'm going to add a third layer that says Pet Supplies. So to do that, let me just go ahead and come down here and click on the new layer. And I'll grab my text tool once again, and I'll come out and I'm just going to type Pet Supplies. Now you see Pet Supplies is a lot larger than Horger, but I'll just go ahead and highlight all of it, and I'm going to resize it. I want Horger to stand out anyway, so let me go ahead and make it 36, and I'll drag it up underneath here. Now it's a little bit, it's not quite as wide as Horger. There's just a teeny tiny bit over here of space. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight Pet Supplies, and up in my character palette I'm going to set my horizontal scale to, I think 102, no, maybe 103 will do it. Go ahead and make it 103, readjust it, and there we go. So I have Horger Pet Supplies. Now, I want a line underneath Pet Supplies, but instead of going through that whole process again, all I need to do is come down here to my layers palette, highlight the layer with the line that I already created, and I'll just drag it down onto my create a new layer icon. And now you notice in my layers palette I have my line and I have my line copy. Now, if you look up here, you only see one line. That's because they're in the same exact position, so they're on top of each other. I'll just, with my line copy highlighted with my move tool, I'll just use the arrows on my keyboard to go ahead and arrow it down below Pet Supplies, and we got something going here. Now actually what I am going to do is I'm going to, with my move key, I'm going to move Pet Supplies up a little bit, and I'm going to move my bottom line up a little bit just to make it a little bit tighter. And in Pet Supplies, I think I'm pretty happy with how everything looks in Pet Supplies, so I'm just going to leave that exactly as it is. Now, from there, what would be really good is if I had a picture of a pet on here. And one thing that's cool about Photoshop is what are called custom shapes. If I come down to my toolbox, and if you haven't used this, it'll be defaulted to the rectangle tool. It's right below the type tool. But if I right click, down at the very bottom of the menu, you will see what is called the custom shape tool. It's a star. And let me go ahead and click on that. And now I can come up to my tool options bar, and you see right here, this little icon right here with the little drop down arrow, it tells you have the custom shape tool. And then if you come over to the right, it tells you what current shape you have. Now I already have the dog chosen, but if you drop this down, you will get a drop down menu of all the different custom shapes that are available. Now here's the thing, Photoshop doesn't load all of the custom shapes automatically, so you guys are probably only seeing like maybe 20. So I'm going to walk you through how to get more. This little arrow to the right, and you notice it's on all these different palettes over here. All these little palettes have these arrows to the right. If I click on that, I'll get a menu. And if I come down about a third of the way, I'll see a thing that says Load Shapes. And if you go ahead and click on that, now I'm at home, but if you go ahead and click on that, up will come a little dialog box that will ask you where you want to load shapes from. And so let me go ahead and click on that. Now at school, what you guys want to do in this little drop down box up here at the top, you want to pull it down and you want to choose Brutus, the applications on Brutus J drive. And then once you're in that, go into the Adobe Photoshop folder that we always go into, and there will be another folder in there called Custom Shapes. And it will have all of these shapes available to you, all animals, arrows, banners, and so forth. You probably just select all and load all of them, which is what I've done here. And you have all these different shapes that are available to you to use. Now, I've already chosen the dog, so let me just come out into my canvas area and I can just draw out a dog. And it's going to be whatever my foreground color is. In this case, it's black. Once I draw it, if I decide it's not big enough, I can just go up to the Edit menu and to Transform Path and Scale. And I can just drag him a little bit larger, make him a little bit bigger. Grab my Move tool. You're going to have to say Apply when you resize it. I'll grab my Move tool, and I'll move him right over by my logo. And I think we're on to something. Now I've kind of determined the size that my logo is going to be. So let me go ahead and grab the crop tool and get rid of a lot of this unnecessary space. Go ahead and crop out right here. Go ahead and make my selection and hit enter. And things are looking pretty good. You know, I think I want to add some style to that dog. So on the dog layer, and you'll see it's just a shape layer. It defaults to being named Shape 1, but I can see there's a little dog there. I'm just going to go down to Layer Styles, and actually I'm just going to add a drop shadow. Go ahead and let me choose the drop shadow, and I'm just going to make, it's defaulted to 5, I'm just going to make it 7, make it a little bit larger. Go ahead and say OK, and now you see I have a little bit of a shadow. Alright, we're going to go ahead and pick up with our business logo that we were making yesterday. Remember yesterday we took the type tool and simply created some text out here that said Horger Pet Supplies, and then we kind of used some lines to accentuate the pet supplies, and then we used our custom shape tool to draw out a dog, and we used our layer styles to add a drop shadow to the dog to kind of accentuate the dog. What we're going to do is we're just going to put some light gray piping that's going to run through the background of this card today. Then we're going to add a black border to both the top and the bottom of the card to kind of stylize it a little bit. And then we're just going to take the text tool and we'll put a little company motto down here along with the company phone number, and we'll have a pretty nice looking logo by the end of the day. Now, one thing I want you to be aware of, we're going to do a lot of this with the type tool again. One thing that's important to remember is anytime you use the type tool, the last settings that you used are still selected. So for instance, if I grab the type tool here, if I come over to my character palette, you can see I still have small caps selected. Because yesterday when we were on the Horger layer and we typed up Horger, we made it small caps. So we're going to want to go ahead and make sure we deselect these things as we go through the process. Now in this case I want Horger in small caps, so I need to leave that there, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new layer, which is going to be my and I'm just going to name this layer piping for lack of a better term. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my type tool, and I'm just going to come out here just any area, and I'm just going to type the letters J and K. And actually I'm going to go ahead and make those nice and small. Right now it's at 250 font. I'm just going to make it like 30 just so you can kind of see what we are doing. Okay, I have a J and a K out here kind of randomly on my card. Now notice we still have these small caps selected. I'm going to go ahead and unselect the small caps. So now we have a lowercase j and a lowercase k. These are the two perfect letters for creating piping. And the reason why is because if we change our font, let me go ahead and highlight those. If we change our font from Times New Roman to Wingdings, we will get a nice two letters that have a lot of curves, a lot of motion to them. And they're perfect for creating our piping through our business card. Now, if I would forget to take off small caps, let me go ahead and put small caps back on. You see I get two smiley faces. Well, smiley face, and then I don't know what you would call that, but we get two faces. So you need to make sure you have small caps off so you get these nice curvy wingding lines. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the color of those to a gray. So I'll just come up here to my color picker, and I'm just going to choose a nice light gray. And you can always adjust this later on, so you can kind of just choose one and get it made and see how it looks. So let me just go ahead and go with that gray. And then I'm going to change my font size to something really large. In this case, I'm going to go back to what we were a second ago. I'm going to go to 250. And you can see how big my font gets up here on my screen. Let me just click off of it for a second. And now I can just kind of grab my move tool, and I can just move it around out into my business card, and you can see kind of just get some nice random lines, gray lines through there. Now you notice right now it's overlapping Horger, and it's it's not exactly how we want it. We just want it to come over here in the stacking order, and we want to drag it all the way to the bottom. It should be just above the background layer. That's it. It should be below everything else. And actually it's giving me a little bit of problems. Let's move Horger up like that. And there we go. So now Horger and Pet Supplies and the dog are all in front of the piping. Actually I think that piping, for me personally, is still a little bit too dark. So I'm just going to come down here with piping, my piping layer selected, and I'm just going to go to my opacity slider, and I'm just going to lighten it up a little bit. And I think I'm going to go all the way down to about 50. And go ahead and see how that looks, and I think I like that. I think that looks pretty good. If I want to readjust it, I can grab my move tool and I can move it around to get it exactly how I want it, but I'm pretty happy with that there. Now, in this tutorial we are kind of at a crossroads, because what we're going to do next is we're going to add some canvas size, black canvas size, to both the top and to the bottom. Let me go ahead and show you where our problem is real quickly. If I keep all of my layers here, if I keep them all here, and I go up to image and canvas size, and I'm just going to go ahead and add a 1/2 inch, which will put a 1/4 inch on the top and a 1/4 inch on the bottom, and say OK, you notice the problem that I now have. This gray text that is creating my piping now shows up in the black. Even though this is at the bottom layer, it's still above the background layer, and it shows up. So what's my solution? Well, let me first of all go ahead and step backwards. What my solution is to eliminate all these layers. I'm going to make this all one layer. And in order to do that, I need to make sure I'm happy with what I have on the screen right now. If I want to make any adjustments to Horger or pet supplies or the lines or the dog or the piping, I have to change it now. I could always save this as a PSD file and then create a new file for my final, but I need to make sure that I'm happy before I go forwards. Okay, and I'm just going to imagine in this case I'm happy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the menu bar and I'm going to go to the edit menu. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm going to go to the layer menu. And all the way down towards the bottom you will see the option flatten image. I'm going to go ahead and click on flatten image and watch what happens to my layer palette over here when I click flatten image. Go ahead and click on it and all my layers are gone. I'm now down to one background layer. And if you look here, you can see it has everything on it. It has the dog, it has the writing, the piping, everything. Okay. Now, what that allows me to do is add canvas size without this lettering showing through. So I can go up to my menu bar now, and I can go to image and canvas size. And once again, I want to add 1/4 of an inch to the top and 1/4 inch to the bottom. So I want to add a 1/2 inch overall. And you see my anchor is telling me it's going to the top and the bottom. And I want it to be black. So let me just go ahead and say OK. And now I've added black to the top, and black to the top and black to the bottom, and my gray piping doesn't bleed through over top of that black. So it's looking pretty good. What I want to do now is I simply just want to add a company logo down here and a telephone number. And once again, we're just going to grab our type tool. And I'm on Wingdings. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back to Times New Roman. And this is black, so I'm going to want my color to stand out. So I'm going to make my color white. Go ahead and say OK. And I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to want the font to be, but I'm going to start off with something small. I'm going to guess it's going to be like maybe 14 font. Go ahead and grab that. And I'm going to click out here. And I'm going to type Quality Pet Care since 1998, and I'm going to choose 1998 because that is the year my wife and I started dating. So let me move this out here, and we have a little logo, Quality Pet Care since 1998. Then I'll just simply come down here and create another new layer, and now I'm just going to put a phone number over here. So I'll grab my type tool. Now all of the settings I just had are still there, 14 point and my color white. I'm just going to go ahead and click out here. 330-332-5395. No, that's not a random number. That is actually the home phone number at my old house in Salem that I used to live in several years ago. And I'll go ahead and reposition that. You know, I think I want to bring the pet care maybe down a notch and over a little bit. And I think we have a pretty good company logo. Actually, let me bring that up just a little bit. Maybe bring our phone number up a little bit. And there we go. I kind of like what we have for a company logo. So what I want you guys to do is just finish whatever you're doing with your company logo. Kind of get an idea of how to do all this. And we're done for the day.